public hearing of the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Public Works into the proposed Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade Australian High Commission project Honiara, Solomon Islands. In accordance with the committee's resolution, this hearing will be broadcast on the Parliament's website, and the proof and official transcripts of proceedings will be published on the Parliament's website. I also remind members of the media who may be present or listening on the web of the need to fairly and accurately report the proceedings of the committee. And my name is Keith Pitt. I'm the Deputy Chair of the Public Works Committee, and I'll ask the other committee members to introduce themselves. In South Australia.
Tony Zappia, member for Macon.
From New South Wales.
Maria Kovacic, Senator for New South Wales.
Western Australia.
Tracy Roberts, member for PS, Western Australia.
And also note we have Senator Colbeck connected in Tasmania with a couple of issues, but I can see he's definitely still there. I now welcome representatives from the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade to give evidence. For the Hansard record, would you please each state your full name and the capacity in which you appear?
Suzanne Pitson, Executive Director of the Overseas Property Office in the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade.
Sarah Curlew, Assistant Secretary, Solomon Islands Branch, Melanesia Division, Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade.
Mr Simon Johnston, Assistant Secretary, Diplomatic Security Division, Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade.
DM Hetherington, Assistant Secretary of Project Management in the Overseas Property Office in the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade.
Ben Pines, Design and Construct Contractor.
Chris Collins, representing RPS as the Department's Project Manager.
And online I do believe we have Mr Andrew Secosta, who is also from the Overseas Property Office.
Thank you very much. Although the committee does not require you to give evidence under oath, I should advise you that these hearings are formal proceedings of the Parliament. Consequently, they warrant the same respect as proceedings of the Parliament itself. Giving false or misleading evidence is a serious matter and may be regarded as contempt of the Parliament. Ms Pitson, would you care to make some brief introductory remarks before we proceed to questions?
Thank you, Deputy Chair. As we begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their continuing connection to land, waters and community. We pay our respects to all First Nations people, their culture and to their elders past, present and emerging. My name is Suzanne Pitson. I am the Executive Director of the Overseas Property Office in the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade. The key strategic objective of this project is to define and showcase Australia's physical presence in Solomon Islands and more widely in the Pacific. A new chancery will support facilities to provide for the Australian Government's existing operational requirements as well for future foreign policy objectives and needs. It will support the functions of the mission, which will act as a hub for advancing Australia's economic, development and security partnerships in Solomon Islands, one of our most significant Pacific relationships. Australia and Solomon Islands are family with interconnected futures. We share a region, an ocean and a history of partnership. With a total project budget of $135.3 million, the project scope will consolidate the Australian Government operations currently spread across 2 sites that are no longer secure or fit for purpose, within one purpose-built chancery compound, to ensure that staff and partner agencies are provided with secure, safe, contemporary, efficient and effective facilities. To deliver this, a modular construction methodology via design and construct model has been employed. This model provides early contractor involvement to inform the design by utilising the contractor's market knowledge and building experience in remote and challenging locations to better manage risks and deliver best for project and best for value for money outcomes. Manufacturing the models in Australia will ensure compliance with Australian legislative and quality standards and our security requirements. Once completed, the modules will be delivered to site for assembly, commissioning and occupation. Not only will this project create jobs in Australia and promote development in the prefabrication industry, it will also provide an opportunity to engage and partner with local industry and further develop, support and grow local capability and skill sets. Subject to parliamentary approval, construction is forecast to commence in mid-2025 and is expected to be complete by late 2028. Deputy Chair, thank you for the opportunity to present. That concludes my opening statement, and DFAT witnesses are ready to answer any questions from the committee.
Thanks very much, Ms Pearson. We'll go first to Ms Roberts.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. Yes, I have a couple of questions on risk. And will the contractor be able to attract enough workers for this project? And will those employed in the construction phase of the project be Australian citizens?
Yes, thank you. That's an excellent question. I will ask Mr Ben Pines as the contractor to address that question.
Thanks, Ms Pitson. Committee member, we're doing a number of things. We maximise the local industry in country, but we do supplement that with Australian-based staff. So the Australian-based staff will provide training and direction and guidance on most of the work, or the majority of the work. And we understand that there's a lot of work going on in Honiara or in Solomon Islands specifically. So we've got ways of supplementing that from Australian-based staff.
So if I could add to that, please, Mr Pines, I think I also note that a significant portion of this construction will actually be built in Australia. So there's the significant risk de-escalation. We're able to manage the risk because a number of the components are already built and pre-manufactured in Australia. Is there anything else that you'd like to add in that regard?
There's probably, as Ms Pitson says, is most of the fabrication of the chancery items are done in Australia, which significantly reduces the need for in-country works.
Okay, thank you for that. My next question is, we spoke about the weather, and so how the project's construction programme be impacted by the significant year-round rainfall Honiara receives, and also take into effect the impacts of earthquake or tsunami.
So I will ask Mr Ben Pines to deal with that in a moment, but at the highest level, you're spot on as that's one of the key construction risks, and we think there are about 3 key construction risks in this space. One is particularly around the site conditions. You saw that it's on the edge of an escarpment. That's clearly going to be a challenge in terms of earthworks. Site stabilisation is going to be important, particularly as you have identified it is in a high seismic zone. Those environmental events that you've alluded to, so the seismic, cyclonic, possible flooding events is also one of our key project risks. But then the third project risk is around the security environment that we're operating in as well, whether or not there are any instances of civil unrest, whether or not the port is closed, and ensuring that there is that continuity of workforce. But more specifically to your question around sort of environmental conditions and being able to continue to work through that. Mr Pines, is there anything you'd like to add?
Thanks, Ms Pitson. Look, we've chosen the modular construction so we can combat that. So we're reducing the effects of the environment by constructing most of it in a factory. Regarding on-site work, we're aware of the conditions. They've been factored into in our program, and we understand them well. So it's considered.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for also introducing about the security, because that was going to be my next question. But my final question is, if any contaminated material is found on site, how will it be safely disposed of?
Sorry, the audio, I lost you there for a moment. Oh, contaminated material,
Contaminated material.
Yes. So that's another excellent question. There has been some contaminant material in the form of asbestos, which Mr Pines can correct me. I believe we've already started dealing with some of that. The other challenge we have in this location is unexploded ordnance. We have had the site cleared to the depth of at least 1 metre, and that has been certified as cleared, but obviously that is also something that CC Pines will continue to manage on site. Mr Pines, is there anything that you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, because add to that, the geotechnical survey has been completed and samples taken from the site. That's in our tender pack initially. So it's been considered, and some of the components had been removed prior. We have a chance fines protocol, so as construction starts or commences, if anything is found, we've got ways of dealing with that. The local network over there in Honiara can deal with most of it, If there's something that can't be dealt with, we'll seek guidance on how to deal with that locally.
Okay. Thank you for those answers to my questions. And Deputy Chair, that's all from me at the moment.
Thanks very much. Just a quick follow-up for me. I mean, there are still significant World War II unexploded devices across the Solomons. I think there's probably a reasonable risk here. So when you say you'll utilise local facilities or people, I mean, who are we talking about? Are we talking about Army trained specialists? Are we talking about the AFP? Are we talking about Solomon Islanders? Who would you use?
I guess I wasn't talking about the unexploded ordnance section of that. So we would have to use Australian-based organisations for anything UXO.
And perhaps if I can just add, under our very long-running 42-year-old Defence Cooperation Program, the ADF does work closely with the Royal Solomon Islands Police Force to build their capability and capacity to deal with UXO, and so the RSIPF does have some capacity of its own.
Thank you. Mr Zapier.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. A couple of questions. Firstly, will the building be used by any other Australian government department?
So it is intended to accommodate relevant agencies. So there will be DFAT, there will be Border Force, and Defence will be accommodated in the Chancery.
And are they currently co-located in the other facilities that we've got?
Yes.
Okay, and that works okay. There's no identifiable problems with that. I did have another question. I'm just trying to recall what it was. With respect to the other countries that have consulates in over there, is the Australian consulate, and it goes back to the question of the Deputy Chair earlier on, the most significant? Is that would we have the biggest presence there?
Yes, that's correct.
And I noticed that the building is going to go from about 90-odd employee positions to about 130, so that's a reasonable increase. What do you base that increase on?
If I may, there's kind of two parts to your question. The first is that we wish to future-proof the building. You know, this will have a 50-year plus lifespan, so we always like to build in a little bit of extra capacity. And I will say also that the figure of 90-odd people that's in the briefing materials already, we've had a slight increase in the number of staff, and that includes our locally engaged staff in Honiara as well as our Australian-based staff. So, you know, in any overseas mission, we have a number of Australian diplomats or other agencies, but then a very large cohort of local Solomon Islanders who we employ as well. So we thought that that was a reasonable kind of contingency plan over the lifespan of the building.
Just one other question. Given that there's many countries that don't have a presence there, if they need consular assistance, do we get them, or is the experience that they would come to the Australian consul or one of the other countries and seek assistance through them in any way? Is that a standard practice?
We do have some parts of the world where we formally provide consular assistance to Canadian citizens.
Right.
I can just get my team to check if Honiara is one of those, but there's no formal such arrangement with other countries.
There's no formal arrangements, but do we find locals walking in, finding that there's nowhere else to go, so they try just one of the existing consulates?
I think that would be a very rare occurrence, yeah.
Okay.
And we would deal with it on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, all right. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Looking at the different options that were considered and with this land swap agreement, can you give us some insight into what the expectations are with the current site and if there are any sort of social risks? You know, do we have to bring them to a particular order? Do they, you know, stay in their existing condition? What happens to those buildings, and are we seen as being like a you know, a good Pacific neighbour in terms of how we leave those sites, and what are sort of the impacts of all of that?
So that's an excellent question. So we have, I'll deal with each in turn. So as regards the owned Chancery, we have entered into that land swap agreement. Obviously, we will leave I was very particular in my opening statement. I've said this building has reached the end of its working life as a chancery and fails to meet the continued security requirements as a chancery. But as a building and as the land, it certainly remains suitable for commercial purposes. So I think in that regards we are being very good neighbours. As regards the lease, the annex is a lease, so obviously we will make good anything that we're obliged to make good under the lease, but then that will simply be allowed to run its term. So is there anything else that you think necessary in that context?
No, I think that's adequately covered.
Does that answer your question, Senator? Or
It does, thank you. And I guess connected to that then, could you sort of take us through in a little bit more detail around, you noted that, it's not fit for purpose and we can't do the things that we would like to do there. Could you give me an example of the types of things that can't happen now, what we can't host and what we will be able to do in the new building and what the significance of those particular actions and interactions are?
So certainly, Senator. So in terms of the options analysis, we did go through a number of options. We know that the current buildings, they're not suitable, we don't fit. We continue to try and squeeze more people in there. We know that they don't meet elements of the National Construction Code. We know that they don't meet elements of accessibility access. So, for example, the annex, we have the floor on the top floor. There is no lift. There are only stairs and you have to climb 3 flights of stairs to get there. We also know that we can't expand to meet any future demand. We're at capacity. We know that there needs to be some sort of building upgrades. We know that there are some non-compliant systems. It's also the case that the buildings don't match and convey the importance of the relationship. We know that there might be a meeting room, but there's no ability to host any events. There's no capacity to undertake any representational activity. And that is really what we're trying to do in the new Chancery compound is, one, build the functionality, uplift the security requirement, make a statement around the importance of the relationship, because it is a very important relationship, but also have the ability to bring people in and showcase the very best of Australia. So we did go through a lot of options in developing that. The idea that, if we could take the existing, one of the example options explored was taking the existing owned Chancery site, did we knock it down and build again? We have nowhere to swing people. We also explored whether there's no other property that could accommodate our needs. We also looked at whether or not we could do it like a build to lease arrangement. Is there a developer that could build this for us? It didn't seem that was possible. We looked for other leased alternatives. That also wasn't possible. So we kind of got to the point where we really had to, if we needed to do this, we needed to be able to construct it ourselves.
Yep. Thank you. So effectively start from scratch and ensure that it meets all the requirements.
Absolutely. But the added advantage of this methodology is that we have the ability to maintain operations and continuity until such time as the new Chancery compound comes online.
And that was going to be my next question, is that, there could be many potential impacts for construction, including, workforce impacts, environmental and climate impacts. So we are able to stay within the current arrangements for as long as we need and then move into the other one without any sort of, issue there.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. That's it for me, Deputy Chair.
Thanks very much. I've got a couple of questions. So you said in your evidence that this is about making a statement. It's quite an expensive statement at $135 million. Will this be the biggest single building in Honiara?
I will have to take the exact on note. I think it's the largest building of this nature in Honiara. It may not be the largest building in Honiara, but Ms. Curlew, is there something?
I would just add, I guess, that like many cities in our region, Honiara is developing and many things are being built all the time. So I think we obviously haven't done a kind of floor-by-floor comparison of square meterage. It will be a significant building in Honiara.
Look, there's no argument about the fact you need to replace the existing post. It's well past the end of life. A couple of questions, firstly, around logistics. So this will be quite challenging, I imagine. Can someone just talk through how it is you'll get these modules from Australia to the Solomons, the restrictions at the port for capacity, for example, clearance depths, ship sizes?
Yes, absolutely. So I will pass to Mr. CC Pines. I think Mr. CC, it's Mr. Pines of CC Pines. I think he will. We're quite concerned. Well, that's absolutely been considered in the delivery and the logistics. I think he mentioned in his opening that we will do some of this. We'll deliver it floor by floor to help deal with local capacity. But Mr. Pines, could you please go through some of that?
Thanks, Ms. Pittston. Look, we've done a fair bit of in due diligence, I'd say. We've utilised the modules that are standard shipping size containers, so we've got a low risk for logistics. You talk to the local network and they say they can take any capacity they want, but we know through the Pacific that we just limit what pressure we put on them. So we're going to do it floor by floor to reduce the need for supplement their local capacity.
So barge delivery, clearly it's not going to be a Cape class container ship, I wouldn't have thought.
It will be all shipping container ships, so it's not barges. No need for a barge. We effectively crane off the ship straight onto a truck.
Yeah, okay, so just using the existing port facilities.
Correct. Yeah.
So just in terms of, while I've got you, in terms of the local content build with local employment, what sort of wage rates are they? Are they over and above their local pricing? Are they Australian rates? Or what's the employment arrangements?
Look, a lot of that's still to be considered, but the rates are comparable when you talk about efficiency of people. So we've got a lot more people per hour to do the same efficiency as Australia. So we might have cheaper rates than Australia, but we need quite often 4 people to supplement the 1 Australian person you might have.
Just the last one from me, just around security for workforce. How do you intend to ensure security for the Australian workforce that you'll have over there for this? Yeah, look, it's detailed. We do risk assessments quite often, and that's derived through DFAT's knowledge. And as that changes, as the risks change, we change our approach. But certainly, there's Australian-based staff that will be up there, and they'll be in a secure area. Developed by us, but it changes. It'll be varying and change as things change in Honiara. So part of the laydown, you'll have a compound and accommodation facilities. So that's an assumption, but if that's the case, will they remain there? What's the plan with the facilities once you come to the end of the build? Are they made available to local people to purchase and remove? Do they come back off the island? What's the intention? Look, certainly the plans are still, obviously got to be thought through, but the intention would be to leave things in Honiara if needed, remove if necessary.
So if I could, with the Deputy Chair's indulgence, Mr. Pitt, if I could just add, in terms of construction security, so it goes to the security of workforce, as well, but in terms of construction security, this is something that the Overseas Property Office always considers very closely with our colleagues from the Diplomatic Security Division. There will be a construction management plan for this project build. Mr. Johnson, is there anything that you wanted to add in that context?
Thank you, Ms Pitson. So the construction security management plan will be a critical part of this construction. As we would all be aware of, the threat capability and intent since 1989 has changed quite a lot, and particularly in this region. And so our awareness, the ability to build a new building provides us a significant enhancement in security because we know what's going into it, but we need to maintain that knowledge and that security around the site and the materials throughout the process to ensure that is a long-lived capability. It's not just about the infrastructure, it's about the people that are working there, and obviously the construction staff are an integral part of that and part of the construction security management plan.
Very good. That's my last question. Committee members, any further questions?
Nothing from me, thank you.
Mr Zappia?
No, I'm all good, thanks.
Ms Roberts? I'll assume that's no further questions. So very good. So thank you very much for your attendance here today. You'll be sent a copy of the transcript to make any corrections to the transcription. If you've taken any question on notice during today's proceedings, you're requested to provide a response by 5 p.m. on Tuesday the 19th of November 2024 to allow the committee to officially conclude its inquiry. And with that, I declare this public hearing closed.
Before you declare it closed, can I come back and answer one question I took from Mr Zappia?
Yes, of course. We haven't closed yet.
Yes, good. I got in just in time. I just wanted to confirm that we do provide formal consular arrangements for Canadian citizens in Honiara.
Thank you.
That's something we won't require on notice.
And Deputy Chair, no questions from me, thank you.
Very good. Late entries, going once, going twice, going 3 times. I declare the public hearing closed. Thank you very much to all of the witnesses and the committee.